Hello, my name is Troy Adu here,
I'm Tyler Hoskins.
and you're listening to our Sick Ass podcast. Kia ora, and welcome to another in-guest episode of the Sick Ass podcast. Today's guest, oh my goodness, it's one of those episodes where I know we could go anywhere. We could really take us out of the field somewhere that we've never really thought about exploring, and then I think it's going to be one of those ones that when we push pause, we are going to start talking even more. So we have been here for about an hour now, just discussing possible topics. And yes, I hope we can get that same energy for now that we are recording. So today's episode, we are here with Stanley Pont. Thanks so much for coming on, brother.
No worries, Troy. Happy to be here.
All right, so we'll just get started. And I think before we were talking about this, we were talking about podcasts that you listen to. This is your first, or this is your debut on a podcast?
Yeah, debut. That's the one.
Thoughts so far on the process in our first 10 seconds?
I'm enjoying it. It's offering a lot of insight into what you do, bro. I got a lot of respect for you and what you're doing here. It's awesome.
Man, I appreciate that. I guess the podcasting world for us has been something that's been quite cool because going into long form and actually expressing different discussions and being able to get different views on things, it really does help with, I guess, gaining more perspectives. And perspective is one of those things that come with a lot of your upbringing and the different things you've been kind of exposed to in life. So do you just want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing and where it is you were actually born and raised and how that all went down?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Dubai. So my dad's a pilot with Emirates and mum was an air hostess. So born out those ways and lived there until maybe I was 14.
14.
Yep, and then went off to boarding school in New Zealand. Served my time until the end of high school and then did a gap year in England. Finished that off, came back home and here I am at Otago Uni.
Oh man, he's at Otago Uni now. So that's been the entire timeline. But in that whole thing, there's a whole heap of shifting.
Yeah.
And what is that like? Especially, doing most of your former years where you're actually learning a lot about what it is to be a human being, and then just kind of uprooting and then leaving to semi-ish foreign land, right? New Zealand for you at that point. How often did you come back?
I would visit New Zealand maybe once or twice a year with family. Dad's family is they're all over the show here in New Zealand, so
Yeah.
obviously come back quite a bit. But no, it's difficult moving. It's a whole different culture. It's a whole different world. So I think the hardest thing for me was leaving the people behind, and then sort of trying to break into this new environment and then relearning what's acceptable, what is the culture here, but at the same time it was good for me, and I think it was good for me doing it young too.
Yeah, true.
At the time it was hard for me to understand, but now that I can look back on it, I really appreciate the range of perspectives it has given me.
Absolutely.
and the understanding.
So when you came over by yourself, or did your parents come over as well? Or?
No, so parents sent me and my brother off to boarding school, so it was just us two, but we were back and forth in the first year maybe 2 or 3 times, so it was quite a gradual sort of release into being by ourselves over in New Zealand.
True. And you talked about the difference in culture. What were, I guess, the first either shocks or things that were quite similar? So we'll talk about similarities and differences between the cultures.
I think similarities. Similarities is a tough one because I guess when I move over, the only thing you really notice is the differences.
Yeah, true.
I'll start with differences because I can't think of the similarity off the top of my head. Apologies, but differences, people, man, people, and especially, and I think New Zealand's a good example for it. Is how open the culture is here. In New Zealand, you can walk down the street and say g'day to anyone, and they'll turn around and give you a what's up. But you go to Dubai and you walk down the street and you say hello to someone, they'll probably look at you and go, "Well, do I know you? Why are you talking to me?"
Yeah.
But I appreciate that here, and then obviously as well how in touch everyone is, or not everyone, but the appreciation people have for the environment here is also a pretty interesting one. In Dubai, it's all desert, so you just sort of place to place, building to building.
Yeah.
But here it's all integrated and
right.
Yeah, I love it here.
So what was the draw card for your family to be in Dubai?
Work, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, Dad was in the Air Force originally.
Yeah.
And then Emirates, I think at the time, was only just starting up.
Right.
And he decided, I better go over there and do something like that. And then just sort of blew up and rode the wave.
Right. So have you been back, in your former years now?
I haven't been back for a long time, maybe 6 years now.
Yeah.
But when I first left high school, I maybe would have gone back once or twice.
True.
Just to tidy everything up before the parents left
Sure.
for good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And so when you do move a country, or when you do move, I mean, especially when you're left by yourself, I mean, that must be difficult.
Yeah.
I remember some of my former years were like going through college and stuff, and just having difficulties with my parents being apart, and like there was a lot of aggression, I guess, a lot of anger towards that sort of thing. Like, did I cause it, or I don't know. It was a weird time to be a teenager, and kind of like accepting what had happened. Did any of that come because you were like, you and your brother, man?
Yeah, no, definitely, I feel that, definitely. You question it, hey, because why is this happening to me, or like, yeah, am I in trouble, or, because my parents used to say to me, if you're in trouble, we'll send you off to boarding school. I mean, next thing you know, I'm getting sent to boarding school.
True,
so,
yeah.
But I mean, at that age, you don't understand what's happening, because you don't appreciate what's being given to, or at least I didn't appreciate at the time initially what they were trying to do for me. You know, you just sort of get told, oh, this is so you can go to uni in New Zealand, but it means nothing to you because you're a kid, and what even is that? Yeah. But I don't know. Now I'm grateful. Now I'm real grateful.
Right. Yeah. And what do you think the turning point was from you going from that aggression or that anger to actually accepting and understanding that this is like for the potential that you have?
After I'd left school, and after I'd spent my time in my gap year in Europe and been around there, and then realised the value of what my time in New Zealand had done for me, and not only in terms of the education and how people around the world value New Zealanders in general. You know, they like to see us as real hardworking and whatnot, but just the cultures, the values that New Zealand culture instilled in me, I think, carrying that with me, has made me definitely like a part of who I am today. Yeah.
But your parents did move over eventually?
Yeah, to New Zealand? Yeah. Eventually, maybe a year before I left New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so did that make it a little bit easier knowing that they were like a little bit closer to where you were, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it offers you some like security knowing that they're not far away if shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so now like we've had Tiana on the podcast. She talked about the importance for her of having a gap year, and you just mentioned that you had a gap year as well when you talked about the different perspectives that they gave you. Do you want to give us a little bit of an insight into what this gap year looked like?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with how do you get involved with it. At the end of high school, you would sort of put your hand up and say, yeah, I'm interested in a gap year, and then they'll match you up with a school. And what I was doing is I was teaching PE, or helping to teach PE, because it was something I enjoyed at high school and was looking to do at uni. So went over there, and a 6-day working week, you usual help the teachers out for the school day, and then on the weekend you'd go and help out with rugby or athletics and whatnot. True. So I was there up until October, and I actually got fired from my gap year in October, and then was planning to work for a little bit, but ended up going home. But yeah, it was basically just work for the school term, go on holiday, get on the piss around Europe, and then come back and repeat it.
Wait, so you got fired from a gap year?
Yeah, I got fired from my contract with the school as a gap year, and it was terminated.
Right, whereabouts were you doing your gap year?
Loughborough Grammar School.
Right. And how do you get fired from?
I had issues with alcoholism, so I was drinking a heap, and it ended up sort of reaching the point where I would drink before school.
Oh damn!
Before work in the morning, I would wake up, drink, and then would rock up to work slightly inebriated. Yeah. And at first, no one could tell, but then it would get worse and worse, and then eventually, sort of had one incident with a staff member, and then from there on, it was sort of like, okay, no, you need to sort yourself out, because this isn't going to work.
Sure.
So that was a wake up call for me, but it was important. Like, mistakes were made, but I learnt from it, and that was probably one of the main driving factors in creating who I am today. You
Absolutely.
know, just thinking about that the whole time.
Yeah, well, everything that we do shapes us in some form or way, and I mean, alcoholism itself it's interesting that you had it quite young, like, and you're able to reflect on it a little bit, and you do see it as a wake up call. What do you reckon spurred it? I mean, if you had a little thought about that.
Yeah. I had struggled mentally with some mental health issues, and I think it was just sort of an escape, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, abusing substances to sort of hide or forget about whatever issues you have going on. It's an easy way out, and I was taking the easy road out pretty much.
And how did you what did you do about that after that point? So like you've lost a job because of it, and I think that was drinking and probably the frequency that you were drinking as well. Did you cut it down? Did you do a program, or did you just self manage it?
I self managed it too. Yeah. It wasn't a long time. I came home back to New Zealand and then left home again, and then was still on that buzz for a long time. But it got to the point where you just sort of over it, and you're doing it to yourself. I think you always know you're doing it to yourself. It just gets to a point where you do it long enough that you can finally be honest with yourself and say, oh, okay, now I notice that this and this is happening. Yeah. That maybe this is a sign that I've actually got a problem. And then once you have that thought, you can't forget it almost. You know? And it snowballs until finally, bam, it hits you. I need to change.
Yeah, man. No, I think about that all the time, man. Like, there's so many excuses that you can tell yourself, and you get this weird comfort, like this weird, just one more time, or like, it's okay. Like, I didn't do this and this. Like, so many barriers that you build for yourself just to let you do that. Yeah. Even though you acknowledge that it is a problem,
you just want to be comfortable with yourself, eh?
Yeah, man, it's a weird. I think it's a human thing, man. We never want to be at risk of anything, and we want to see like how comfortable we can make ourselves. Yeah. And that's probably half the reason why a lot of us don't get to where we need to be. It's because we're so happy just being comfortable with that. Damn, that's How old would you have been at that time?
Would have been maybe just after turning 19 or just before turning 19.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, I mean, to have that sort of reflection so young and for you to be able to build on that, even if you didn't reflect properly then, you have years and years to build your knowledge and just be like, I've been there, I've done that, and this is how I got out of it. Yeah. So what were the types of things, I guess, you did to actually help you take you back to that point to never really put yourself in that position?
Being honest with myself is I say I'm honest with myself, and I'm not still 100% honest with myself, but I try to be more honest with myself. And when I know, I have an inkling that I'm doing something that I shouldn't, I can now sit down and sort of have a half conversation with myself and be like, oh, mate, like, what is this doing for you? Like, you want to be happy or whatever, like, is chasing this gonna ultimately make you happy at the deepest level? Probably not. It's gonna make me happy for 4 hours, 5 hours, and then I'm going to look to repeat the cycle. Sure. So I guess just putting a process in place where you can systematically analyze the decisions and the actions you're making, and then break it down and say, I was doing this for that, or why are you doing the things that you were doing? Yeah. I guess, and thinking about that is important. Yeah. At least in my experience, I found it to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And did you find that process was easier, like, for you to keep to yourself, or did you become accountable to someone? How did you go about that?
Ooh, I wasn't accountable to anyone because initially I wouldn't really talk to anyone about it. Sure. But I think that's a hard one. Like, if you're honest with yourself, I guess you self-check, self-check, and you would just come back and be like, hey, look, for 6 weeks I've been doing the same thing. I said to myself I would make a change. 4 weeks on or whatever, you would check again and you'd. Yeah. No, sorry, I'm a bit lost.
That's fine, man. That's fine. I mean, cause sometimes it's one of those things where even when the incident happens, you're like kind of embarrassed that it happened, and then any time that you need to talk about it, that embarrassment kind of comes back, especially if it's quite fresh as well. So that makes sense. But have you found? I mean, you can pretty much take the segment that we just spoken about and apply it to nearly anything in your life, like your dieting, your exercising, sport, and all that sort of stuff. Do you find that self-reflection and checking in on yourself has just, you've kind of transferred it into different portions of your life?
Definitely. And I guess the whole process thing, like you said, applies to anything in life, whether it's exercise, whether it's health, whether it's la-di-da-di-da. It's a difficult thing to sort of take that process out from one aspect of your life where you're trying to be healthy, you're trying to look after yourself, and then knowingly apply it to, say, schoolwork or whatever. Like it kind of looks different, but it's the same process. I guess it's just the same thing, being honest with yourself, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're going about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's one of those things that, once you get quite proficient at things, it's really difficult to see when you are doing steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because you're just like, that's just what I do. Like when you wake up in the morning, just like roll out of bed and do something because you just have it as a routine, and I guess it just becomes part of your person, right? Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're pretty good at talking now, though.
Oh, sometimes, depends if the pressure's on or not.
Yeah, I guess so. But like, how have you found? I guess you've grown up in different places, and you've had to just deal through cultural barriers, language barriers.
Mm-hmm.
How have you found that it's helped with how you communicate?
Yeah, I think so. Understanding that different people sort of, because they're from different places and have different cultures, they look and respond to different values in different ways.
Absolutely.
So say if I actually no, I won't give an example because I'll probably mess it up. But like say if I'm back home in Dubai, I would be a lot more careful about the language and stuff I would use, just because they respond a lot more aggressively to bad language, because in their culture it's a more open statement of hostility than it would be here, and it's way more integrated. You know, Kiwis swear all the time.
Yeah.
Left, right, centre. So yeah, no, it makes a difference, definitely. Yeah. Knowing people, I guess, makes a difference in how you interact with them on all levels.
Yeah.
You know?
And for most interactions that you have, do you find that you're pretty good at like picking out energies?
I'd like to think so, but I still get caught out every once in a while. But yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this to you before. You can tell what someone's about in the first 30 seconds to a minute you meet them, man. Like the vibe they give off generally will tell you a lot about the values they have, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what do you think because it's something you're not aware of, because it's like, you know, when you have a cologne and you put it on the first time, you can smell it, and then like you put it on so long that you don't smell it, and then you go down the street and people are like, oh, that's that cologne. You're like, what, you can smell that? Like, that's just me. So in terms of your cologne or your vibe, what type of vibe do you reckon you go with to other people?
Oh, I don't know. I'd hope it was a positive one. Like if there was one word people would use to describe my vibe, I hope it was positive. Like I don't know, positive, honest, and hearty. Yeah. No matter what you're doing, I want people around me to just commit to whatever they think or believe in 100%, but at the same time be open to change. You know.
Sure.
Believe whatever if you're gonna do something, go after it 100%. Back yourself, but at the same time, don't think it's the only thing you'll ever do. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got to be ready and willing to adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think being adaptable is one of the most important things you could have. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are at all these different things in a fixed state.
Yeah.
Unless you can adapt, and like, because things are changing, and we're seeing it right now with like COVID and everything like that, where we're so unsure of what this world is going to be like. And it just makes things difficult if you only think in a certain way. Like, this is the only way the world works. And I think that comes across in how you are able to conversate with different people as well. So we've talked about the vibe, and now we're going to talk more about the conversations. Now, we were talking about perspectives earlier before this, and you brought out a little 3D model. You used the cup, and I thought that was so impressive, and it's so important for a lot of people to think about with regards to perspectives. And so do you just want to run back over your idea of the 3D model and how people can be a bit more, I guess, aware, open-minded about an entire situation?
So as I was saying to Troy earlier, if you could think of, say, a coffee mug as an issue, say racism or something that's kicking about today, a lot of people, or at least in my experience, a lot of people would take sort of one snapshot of that mug from one perspective, say the left side or whatever, and then that view of the mug is sort of their only opinion. Well, if you were to 3D model an image and put it onto the computer, or you want the most accurate image of that mug, you would take photos from the left, from the right, from behind, slowly work your way around, so that you would have a more accurate idea of what that mug looks like from different angles. And to give an example, if I was to buy a piece of land in the forest, and I was to ask an economist, okay, where's the value in this forest? He would tell me about the price of the wood, la-di-da-di-da. And then if I was to go next door and ask the ecologist, where's the value of this, what's the value of this forest? He'd tell me about, the different species of birds and animals in the forest. If I was to ask 100 people with 100 different professions or specialties, they'd give me 100 different answers. Then I'd have a way more complete understanding of what value is in that forest.
Yeah.
And taking it back to the mug, you get 1,000 photos versus 100 photos around the mug. You've got a way more detailed picture of the mug with 1,000 perspectives than you do with 100.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have more data points.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the average of what it could be is closer to whatever the truth is if you have more data points on all of that. Yeah. Shout out Stat 101.
Yeah, actually learned something from you.
I think that's really, really important, especially because like we live in a day and age now where, say, Twitter or something, you only have so many characters to to give an idea. And then because that person's given that one idea, that's one perspective, people either like rip into them or not. And I'm like, wow, we've missed so much context here.
Exactly.
There's heaps of context that goes missing. Have you heard the blind people stroking the elephant?
The blind? No, I haven't.
Oh, damn.
You might have to explain that one for me.
Yeah. Okay, it's not as cool as the 3D cup, but okay, stroking the elephant. It's not rude. I promise.
I was a bit worried there.
No. So there's 5 blind people. They're stroking different parts of the elephant.
Okay.
They're all stroking the elephant.
Yeah.
But like one person's got the tail, one person's got like the foot, one person's got the ear,
Okay.
and they all describe this elephant differently because of the different perspectives that they have of it. Oh. But that's all they have, like in terms of perspective.
Yeah.
So they're all right, but then they're all very wrong.
Okay.
Because like it's just what they know of the elephant, but they're all blind. So they're trying to like relay it to one another, and they're like, "No, an elephant is this." So the person who has the tail like thinks it's like a snake, and all that, and then the person who's on like the foot is like, "No, it's like this and this, or like it's leather."
I like that. I like that a lot. Too.
But then that's where I was thinking about like, we're neither right or wrong.
No.
Where it just really depends on the context.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. There is no right or wrong. You're exactly right, and like it depends on your frame of reference and your perception.
Yeah.
And I threw this one out before, but one thing that I think is really pertinent to a lot of people that they don't realize is the way you think affects your perception, which affects your reality. And I mean, if you're angry about an issue before you discuss with someone, whatever it is, whatever that issue is, no matter what they say, your response is probably going to come from a place of anger.
Right. Have you encountered that quite a bit with yourself?
I feel like I have, and I mean, usually I'll come up across that sort of stuff when you're having a debate with someone over an issue you don't agree on.
Yeah.
But nah, definitely come across it, and I think it's important for people to be aware of your awareness, like what is your scope? And you might not know everything, and that's all good. You know, you don't need to know everything, but as long as you're aware that you may have some bias or lack some sort of information, before you make a decision or believe that your decision or your opinion is 100% knowledgeable. You know?
Yeah, or even being aware of like what's triggering you.
Yeah.
Because like, sometimes people get real mad and they're like, why can't you tell? Like, and it's like, bro, you don't even know why you're mad.
Yeah. An irrational emotional response.
Yeah, man.
And we wonder, where does it come from? Where does it come from?
Or even that, like we were talking about this earlier, about how some people can't leave on like a question mark almost. It's always like if someone was to throw out, oh, we'll just agree to disagree. Yeah. It's like, no, we need an endpoint.
And why do you need that endpoint? It's a curious one. Are you insecure about something, or do you just need the closure? Or
so what do you have you ever dealt with that?
Yeah, definitely. Usually a lot of the time.
What'd you go to when it happens?
Man, it's usually no. Come on, bro. Like you don't need an answer. Like actually, no. To be fair, it would be. I usually like to point out that you can have an opinion and I can have an opinion, and they don't need to be the same for us to go our separate ways and get on with life. We can think different things, and that's all good.
Absolutely.
Like, pointing that out is, I guess, kind of in a way pointing out or making them aware of their awareness.
Absolutely.
You be aware that you don't have to agree on everything. And I reckon it's surprising how many people don't think about those sort of things.
Yeah, man.
Don't think about how aware they are of their own emotions or why they think certain ways. They're just sort of victims to their own behavioural cycles.
Damn. Absolutely. I think that all the time. Like, you know how people sit there and people watch? Like, honestly, they look at such superficial things of those people. Like, they're wearing these shoes, they're wearing that coat. I like to think about, like, what time they wake up this morning. It's like, I wonder if they brush their teeth with their left hand. Like, I think way beyond. Or like, you know, like a Tarantino film? Yeah. How it's like all these different parts lead up to that part there. I try to like put all these different puzzles together.
What are their plot twists? I like that.
And it's just because like I'm so aware, I guess, of what I think and what I do. That I start to go beyond that level of just the superficial, what these people look like.
That's great, though.
It sounds like you're on the same, like you think the same way.
I hope so, but I feel like you kind of have to, once you realise the inner workings of your own mind are so complex and are so sort of comprehensive, you realise how much you simplify other people too. Yeah. And then when I think about all my thoughts and how I'm thinking and my emotional responses, then I think about, what about my flatmate? Is that how he responds to the same thing?
Yeah,
I
man.
wonder if he thinks the same thing when this happens.
Yeah.
You know, and then if he does, I can try a different line of conversation with him, knowing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, observing people, man, is so interesting. It's so
sure.
interesting, especially I reckon, especially in times of high stress, and COVID would be a good one. Like people's behaviors start to change at a much greater rate when there's high levels of stress in the environment. I reckon.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't actually take that time to like stop and think. Like they think about everything that's going on around them. They never really like understand where it is they sit within all of that stuff. And then like they just get so stressed out, but then they realize like they never realize that there's not actually much to stress out about.
No.
Like if you've got your own stuff sorted, the rest of the world will keep spinning, but as long as you like control what you can, you're gonna be fine. Damn.
Yeah. You gotta keep that long-term outlook, because
Yeah,
if you're always only looking one day ahead, well, in the middle of this pandemic, you're gonna be stressing day one, stressing even more day two.
Yeah. At
the end of the day, it's another cycle, and it'll get bad and it'll come down, mellow out, and hopefully ease off, and we'll all be okay. But it's easy to lose your head just looking 3 days ahead and thinking this is all it is ever gonna be.
Yeah, man. That's true. Is there anything that you've done, like maybe a little bit of travel or something that you've done, maybe like got out and about? And I mean, you do a bit of yoga as well, I've seen. And you travel quite a bit, actually. You're a prolific traveler. Like, you're just all around the South Island. So trying to sit you down for this, we had to like pinpoint this time here. So like, how is it that you can, or do you see any of that as like gaining kind of your perspective on life in general?
The time I spend traveling, like when I'm sitting there in the car, it's a lot of time to myself, and that time to myself I can use to explore my own head, my own philosophies. And like quite often what I'll do is, if I've had an argument or something with someone the day I leave, I'll think about it in the car, and I'll go through and I'll go back and analyze, like, did they react that way because I said this then? Or what could I have said differently that maybe would have been better for them, or would have made them feel less comfortable? I feel like I'm pretty in tune with people's emotions, and and when I talk to them, the way they respond, and reading language and body language and whatnot. So yeah, time to myself traveling is always helpful, and is always constructive. You know, it's just almost like a constructive criticism session with myself. Well, I hope so, at least. That's the hope, eh?
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the time. Like time in different environments. Yeah. Where you're not just like stuck in the same conveyor belt of like your usual life. We can get out. You're just roaming around your little black V-dub and just getting some thoughts.
That's the one. I mean, definitely. You need to be in a different spot, I reckon, to make different habits, to have different thoughts. Otherwise, it's easy to fall into the repeat cycle of mediocrity. Your everyday routine. And a quote I like, actually, is if you want new habits, you need to get rid of old ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like when we think about like inputs and outputs. If you keep putting in the same stuff, you're just going to keep getting the same return. Or worse, like it might get to a point of diminishing returns because it's like it's a system that's been so overrun that like it can't produce the same output anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really cool thought. That's a really, really cool thought. So just going beyond now, and then we're thinking about you coming into study. Like, why the greatest degree of all time? Why did you decide to be a fitter?
Actually, someone persuaded me. I was originally going to go to Canterbury Uni and do something like international business or something like that. But I actually, when I came back from England, I lived with a girl and her family, and she was doing first year PE at Otago. Oh yeah. And because I'd enjoyed PE at high school, obviously, and done my gap year as a PE like TA. She was talking to me about it. Oh, look at all these photos. This is the degree. This is what all these people that I know who are in their last year are going to do. Sure. So I thought, I want a piece of that. And at that point, I was less concerned about where my degree would take me in terms of a job. Right. And more about, I kind of want to immerse myself in an environment where I'll learn something, but at the same time keep at it with my social skills, keep ticking away at all the other aspects of whatever makes you like a more, I don't know, alpha of a human, or whatever the term is, you know, a more constructive, productive human.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the PE degree, and I've said this on this podcast nearly like infinity times, but we're like social and intellectual at the same time. Yeah. Like, how far you get is not only dependent on how like book smart you are, but it's also how can you elaborate on that by dealing with people. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, some people find that hard.
Yeah, I do. Not everyone has people skills, and I think that's almost more important than intelligence.
Absolutely.
There's no point being intelligent and knowing all these things if you can't get your ideas across to someone who's going to do something with that information.
Yeah.
So you've got to be pretty on that.
I always just think about like some of the lecturers we've had, and they're just like the smartest people. You know that when you sit them down, like face to face, maybe if you just keep plying away at it, you'll like get to the answer.
You've got to mine away some information.
But when they're like in front of a whole class of like a whole bunch of people, they just don't know how to teach.
Yeah.
But I know they've got it in there. We just need to break it out of the vault.
I guess a lot of people are anxious too, I'm the same. I'm anxious, but I mean, once you spend enough time in front of enough people, you sort of get over that. You climb out of your shell about worrying about, because it is a scary. It is a barrier to get over. I reckon being able to talk to not just one person, not just a bunch of people, but one person too. Be able to talk to one person honestly is kind of hard for people as well. You have to have some sort of release on your controls, you know.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be able to open up, and I guess fair enough, it's hard for people who have been through some stuff or maybe have these defense mechanisms in place.
Yeah.
But no, if you want to be a good communicator, you've got to be willing to get out there, look like a fool, eh?
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to look like a fool.
Sure. Yeah, I mean.
And that's what the PE degree was so good for. PEO week, first week, look like a fool for a week, eh?
Yeah.
And then you don't care. It doesn't matter. You know everyone's on the same vibe. Everyone's ready and willing to just let go and not worry about what other people think of you, and therefore you can connect on such a more intimate level. Like I really love it. I'm sad it's gone. I talked to Geordie Carey, who's another FETA student, and he was telling me that, and I wasn't aware of this, but the equivalent of the FETA degree now, they don't have anything. Well, they do have a PEO week, but it's not quite to the same level as what we would have had. And I see it in my yoga presentation for practicum. It was. And I'm not bagging on anyone else who did their presentations. They were awesome. You were all great, but you could sense the difference in communication ability, or like the willingness to want to talk in front of people. From the older, and then boom, 1 year younger, they were nervous, and fair enough on them. But a classic FETA for me would have been like, oh, get up there. I know everyone doesn't care. This is a safe space. So, I don't know, it's interesting. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, because we from our first couple of weeks, you know, when we did gym and dance as well, we already put ourselves in such an uncomfortable position. Like, barely any of us had done gymnastics before, barely any of us had danced before, but we were forced into this class, and we had to perform in front of each other every single day. Yeah. And
I reckon it's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's an aspect of education you don't really get, that sort of holistic perspective on education, and that's why maybe why PE graduates come out and there's such a name for the PE school, because they're out once they're out in the community, they're boom.
Yeah, man. Like if I look across the university at the moment, like my boss at the moment, she was a FETA. She did her PE degree and then she ended up doing a PhD, but she's like in a strategic role right now. I've been at so many conferences and so many people come over to me and they're just like, you're a FETA? And they're like in management roles everywhere. And the reason why they rise up is just because they have that ability to just like intertwine with so many different people. Yeah. And like semi-intellectual as well.
FETAs are able to get out there and just take initiative. Take the initiative. You don't need to be told. You know this is what needs to be done. Boom! I should go talk to that person. I'm not afraid to go talk to that person and ask them. Yeah. You know, I just rated it. It gives you almost a sense of freedom as well. Sure. Getting over those inhibitions, the social inhibitions.
Absolutely. Do you reckon it's a nature thing or a nurture thing? Do you reckon the people who get into PE chose it because it suits them? Or do you reckon they get into the degree and then like switch it up?
I reckon half and half, because there's definitely people who get in there and straight off the bat, you know, they're like, out the gate, they're going to be talking to everyone in the room. But then you got people on the other side of the coin who are a bit more like nervous. But by the time, I reckon by the time you've done a year or two of PE, the people who are maybe not as loud at the start realize what sort of environment it is, and then are more willing to contribute to that. Yeah. But two sides of the coin, definitely. And as to what draws people, man, it'd be hard to say that the culture didn't draw people. I mean, that's the reason I joined, and I only heard about it 2 weeks before having to get in on it. So
are you? I mean, you're finishing off your degree, one of your degrees now, and so you did PE as well as finance, right? Yeah. And in terms of future study, what are you thinking about?
Hopefully doing a master's in finance next year. That's if I get the grades though. And just because of the whole COVID and whatever's happening at the moment, it's a bit difficult to get work. And I thought may as well take a year.
Yeah. And what was the draw into like the finance side of things?
So when they changed around the PE degree with the PE school, changed from the 4 to the 3-year one.
Yeah.
I couldn't do one of the papers that I was pretty keen on.
Damn it.
So I thought, I may as well pick up commerce because it was something that had interested me. I thought, well, because I was terrible with money in first and second year, like so bad with money, and I thought, no, I need to sort my life out a little bit and get onto it now.
Yeah.
So picked up commerce, ended up enjoying it, finding it really interesting, mostly because of the people side of things. The philosophy of the economy is interesting.
Yeah.
And now I see the value in it, and I enjoy finance a lot. Yeah. So I thought, master in finance is what I want to do. And like, it's not work I just enjoy for the money side of things.
Sure.
Like, I actually enjoy understanding business and understanding people and how they interact. Like,
right.
It is really interesting.
And what are some of the key concepts that I guess come out of, your so many years doing finance? Like, what are some key things that you see as the foundation for either like economic success or even just like living a pretty wholesome life?
Discipline, man. Discipline is a massive one. And I guess that goes for anything, but financial discipline and making yourself aware of what you're doing. I mean, that's important too. You see a lot of people nowadays, I think nowadays, will watch a YouTube video, see that the headline, watch maybe like 2 or 3 of them, and then suddenly think they know a lot about it.
Right.
And maybe they are more educated than everyone else, but it's not being aware of what you don't know.
Oh man,
that gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's the financial markets are vicious for that, and that's what they feed on, and it's the aim of the game. But yeah, being disciplined, knowing what your means are, living within your means is a big one too.
Sure.
I mean, you've got to be onto it. You can spend more money than you earn.
Yeah.
But it'll come a day where you're out of money, and then you're gonna have to spend less than you make for a wee bit. It's all a cycle, one way or another.
Yeah, it kind of always reminds me of like, I don't know, do you know Scott Storch?
I've heard the name.
He's the musician. He basically
I think I've heard of this guy.
Yeah, he basically did like a 2-year, spent 70 mil and just like wasn't making any money, and he just like went through this really bad period. And then I look at all the rappers and stuff, and they just make like quick money off the bat, and they're like buying chains and all that. Yeah. And I'm like, man, no discipline.
That's the thing. Like, no matter, you can redistribute all the money in the world today, give it an equal amount to everyone, and the people who can manage their money better are going to end up with more money. It's just the way. It's just the way it works. Like, knowing where to put your money and when. That's what makes you money,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Everyone always thinks about like the people who have the greatest ideas, and sometimes the people who actually have like a bit more wealth are just those who were a bit frugal when they needed to be. And I mean, Warren Buffett still carries his bloody lunch around.
Yeah, that man's an idol to me. Yeah,
right.
Honestly, I think he still lives in the same house he did in the 80s. He still drives the same car, and his wife still puts the same amount of exact change for his Macca's burgers and in his car docket or whatever. He's the epitome of discipline and living within your means. I mean, hell, he lives under his means.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you reckon the distribution of wealth as well, like, with the 5% and all that sort of stuff. What do you reckon that does? Sorry, if we're gone totally out of scope, that's fine. But
awesome.
like, what do you think that does in terms of like those people who are, maybe majority underneath that, or actually living below the poverty line?
As in my opinion on what they should do?
Yeah, like any thoughts on that?
I think like the way, it's obviously not right. However the money distributed now is obviously, it's skewed too far. Maybe in a smaller volume it worked all good. Right. But yeah, it's getting to the point now where like something definitely needs to change. In terms of I don't know what, I haven't read many studies, or I don't know what the stats are on the people who live under the 5% poverty line. But I think if they were more like, if someone educated them or showed them this is like some of the techniques that people at the top do with, like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still do basic things correctly, pay into your savings before you even get the paycheck, that sort of thing. Yeah. But then obviously there's a whole host of other factors that come into play. I mean, they may be have 4 dependents, you know,
Yeah.
like they can't put savings in. So it's a difficult one, but educating yourself can never do you wrong.
Absolutely.
Educating yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's something I've always said about reading.
Yeah.
Like, any book that you read, even if you hated it in that moment, like some point in your life, it's going to make a lot of sense. And like, it may not make sense to you at that point, but have you heard the quote, like, they hide money in the books?
oh no, I haven't.
Well,
I
okay.
can believe it though. I believe that.
Well. So basically, back in the days when they used to have slaves, what they used to do was, because they knew the slaves couldn't read, so they'd hide their money in books.
Okay.
Because they'd never think to go look at a book because they can't read.
Interesting.
So now, obviously, people don't have slaves. Well, actually, 13th Amendment, loopholes and whatnot. But
not so overtly, at least.
yeah, the like, any book that you read is always going to return on itself, because
definitely.
like $30 there, but then that's a lifetime of knowledge.
Yeah.
And knowledge is like everything.
Yeah, I heard or read a quote somewhere. It's, if you read 3 books on one subject, you'll probably know more than 99% of the world about it, because reading is such a lost skill now. Like,
Yeah, sure.
I think is what Warren Buffett reads 600 pages a day. Bill Gates reads something like a book a week. Or I mean, if all these people who are at the top are reading this much and gaining this much information, if you think about it, I think about it in compound interest.
Absolutely.
Like knowledge. If I'm reading a book a week and I'm learning that much more in a week, every week for a whole year, well, at the end of the year, I'm going to know so much more than you are.
Man.
So much more. And then even if 99% of that information is useless, you come across an opportunity where 1% of that information pertains to whatever you're doing, and then boom, it pays off.
Yeah.
And like, investing in yourself through education is always a go, man. Like, you've got to read, I reckon. You've got to read.
Yeah.
It's such a tragedy that people don't read as much as they do. And like, I'm saying all this sound like I'm the messiah of reading books, but I'm not. I'm terrible myself. Like, I just try to get my 10 pages a day.
Yeah.
And then if I feel like reading more, I'll read more. But
yeah,
I mean, it's going to be a struggle sometimes, and it's all good. Like, same with anything. You're not always going to do anything perfectly, and it's all good. But as long as you're trying, and as long as you're getting that 1% better than me, like you're making a change, you're making a habit.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at your bookcase right now, I think I've had a little crack at all of them.
Yeah.
So of those books, which one has been the most, or the biggest return for you so far?
Oh, okay. Well, it's actually one that's not up there because I give the good ones out. Hey,
Oh, fair. You're a library.
Yeah. There's one called The Ant and the Ferrari by Dr. Kerry Spackman, I think, and it's basically his idea behind the book is to challenge your perception on life and challenge your perception on the world. And as in the title, The Ant and the Ferrari, his first analogy is, imagine this tiny ant sitting on the hood of the Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you had a frame of reference, or your understanding is this frame of reference is the size of the picture, where it's small enough that you can see the ant in great detail, you would see the ant and you would see a red background, but you would have no idea what the background was.
Yeah.
Just because the ant's like so up close and so small. As you zoom out, you get about medium ways out, you can sort of start to see the like outline of the bonnet. And you get a bit of an inkling of what it is, but you can't really see the ant anymore. It's blurry, it's in a dot. And then finally you zoom all the way out. You've got the car in all its glory, but you can't see the ant anymore at all. And he's making the point that ant has no comprehension, no understanding of an engine. Yeah. But he's sitting right on it, and it's right underneath him. And all of that it does, the maths behind it, the combustion, the material science. Yeah. But it's there, and he's just unaware, you know? Yeah. And the same goes the other way. Whatever maybe great cosmic beings are out there, maybe can't even perceive us.
Yeah, man.
So
sure.
He attacks a whole lot of interesting issues. Right? Any of you are looking for a good book to read, and it's really readable as well. I mean, the chapters are short. Yeah. You can go like a chapter, put it down for the night, and spend the whole week thinking about it. Like it's really one of those books.
That's cool, man.
I think he did work like consulting for the All Blacks. He's
oh really?
Yeah, he helped design F1 cars. And man, he's been involved in a whole bunch of stuff. So.
Just like a prolific thinker.
Yeah, exactly.
Just someone who like will question everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what you need. Yeah, that's what you need.
There's times where you just like start getting comfortable, and you just like, why am I comfortable?
Yeah,
like, what am I not doing anymore?
You shouldn't be comfortable.
Yeah,
and that's what like. Kids are great, why this, why that? And then you get angry at them and then you tell them to stop. But no.
Yeah, I almost think, when they, I forgot the saying. It was like to do with kids and playing, how like adults are just kids who like don't play anymore,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
like kids are always exploring the different opportunities for movement. So obviously, thinking as a movement specialist myself, we're just looking. We're like looking for options. And if you think about what you were talking about with perspectives and frames of reference, like you're afforded different opportunities the more you know about things.
Yeah.
Like a door frame. Sorry, that's a really bad example. But it could be a door frame, but then like if you know how to do, like if you have strong fingertips and you can do pull-ups, like it then becomes an implement for you to do pull-ups.
Yeah.
And there's just like heaps of different things that the more knowledge you have, the more resourceful you could be with nothing.
Yeah. The greater utility you have as a human. Yeah. I like that. I like that train of thought. I've never really thought about that. But no, that's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And because all you know, so like it's like minimalism. I think the more knowledgeable you are about the world in general, the more you realize you don't need like all these different commodities. No. You just need the bare necessities, and you can just make what you have even better. Yeah,
I think that's the name of the game, efficiency and optimizing.
Damn.
Optimizing whatever resources you have, or resources you're using.
Yeah.
And making your processes efficient. I mean, like you would know with the gym and whatnot is. You probably start out like me. I have no idea. I'm a clunk with my cooking. My meal's all over the show. But the longer you keep at it, I know that this takes this long to cook, and this meal will last me 3 days or whatever. So I need to do it then. Boom, get your routine in, a greater understanding of where things fit in, when.
Yeah,
and then boom, it just shoots you into the stratosphere from there.
Damn. Yeah, it's just big systems.
Yeah. Compound interest, refining your processes.
Yeah.
It's...
Damn. All right. So, just in terms of time, we've just... that flew like nothing. So, the last question that we ask everyone, just to like see the types of things that we can do as... So, you've actually dropped so many different gems, but what we like to do is just see what people can actually do or start to implement into their life. Maybe not now, but sometime along the lines. And something that you do almost every single day or close to every single day that makes you feel like you've optimized your day, your week, and then therefore the rest of your month.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I've got a couple little habits. One of them is making your bed in the morning. First thing, I'm pretty sure I heard someone else say this on one of your other podcasts, but it's a big one. Making your bed in the morning is massive. Like you might not think it's a big gesture, but in your head, you've completed the first small task for the day.
Yeah, man.
Your space where you'll return to at the end of the day is clean and tidy. It's like a little bit less clutter in your mind. It's just soothing for me. And then one that Margie will probably love, because I got this out of my yoga and mindfulness course at FUP, is stop. It's a technique for when you're angry or you're stressed. You just take a second to sort of I think it's like count to 10 or something like that, or just take 3 seconds in your head, take a breath, relax, gather your thoughts, think about where you are, what you're doing, and why you're feeling the emotion you are, and then re-enter slowly, gradually bring your attention back to whatever issue it is you're having, and then re-engage with it, and then see if that makes a difference. And whenever I do that, I always think of another quote that pops up into my head, and that is, delay is the best remedy to anger.
Damn.
Delay is the best remedy to anger. And I've experienced that one time and time again, and like I know both sides of the coin. I've been angry and said the wrong thing, and I've waited and said the right thing and been thankful for waiting. And like I think that's one that people will find useful. Hopefully you guys find it useful. Because I reckon everyone's getting stressed. Everyone gets angry, and like it can be as little as when you're driving your car and someone pulls out in front of you, or as big a moment as you and your partner are having a massive argument. Like it works in either situation, and it helps. It definitely helps. Try it.
Yeah,
it can only bring good things.
Yeah. I'm even gonna try it. Yeah. Like, there's times where I'll be working on something, and then it like doesn't work. And then I get angry and I get frustrated, and then I just like put on some bullshit of work. Like the rest of my work in that time while I'm in that space of anger, it's like just shite. There's nothing good or productive that can come from it. And if I just took those like couple of seconds to breathe and just like reorient myself, then I think I could just No, absolutely.
It's amazing how much like can change in a short space of time, man.
Yeah,
like
man.
You, in the midst of your despair, you'll think it's the only thing that'll ever be, and then an hour later, your mate comes around, makes you laugh, and then suddenly it's all good again. And like you just, you got to be aware that whatever you're feeling is only temporary. And here's another interesting fact. I think the average emotion lasts something like 90 seconds.
Oh, right.
And if if you're feeling like, you know, you get sad at night or whatever, and you're in the cycle of despair, what they find is it's most people reliving that 90-second emotion.
Yeah.
You get to the end of it, and then you're trapping yourself. Just take 5-10 seconds to think about why you're thinking these things, or even just sit with your emotions. I think that's another good one, actually. Being able to sit with your emotions. Resisting pain. That's what hurts. That's what hurts.
Yeah,
but if you just like let it happen, let it be, sit there with it, boom, feel shit for 90 seconds, and then like it is a different feeling, inside.
We can reason with it.
Yeah.
You could finally start to see why this, like, when I feel this is what happens, this is what I can do to remedy it. And then you take that 90 seconds, and then you realize you that ant sitting on a Ferrari.
Yeah, that's the one. Look it back. I like
there
it.
There it is, man. Oh, right.
Compassion. It's self-compassion. It's empathy with reason.
Absolutely. Oh, mate, we're gonna have to finish it there. We've gone over time. But
sorry,
mate,
team.
I got so lost in that one. I think there's going to need a part 2 for sure. I just want to let you know on the podcast while we're here is that this was probably one of the most enlightening chats I've had on this entire podcast so far.
Glad to hear that.
The reason is we didn't really. Well, I usually come with notes. I usually think about how it is that I can be a good interviewer, but we just discussed things. And it was mean, bro. And I know you had a little bit of apprehension coming on, but thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for having me, Troy.
It's
been good. It's been a good chat, brother. Good chat.
Appreciate it, bro.
I'll see you.
All right.
Anytime.